Hey, Pepin.
Yo, yo.
I've been thinking a lot lately about digital enterprises.
Digital enterprises. Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it's like when you have a company that does things only digitally, especially in the terms of entertainment.
Oh. I was thinking like a giant ship.
I mean, wait, what were you thinking about a giant ship?
Like digital enterprises. Giant ship that goes across like the sea and it makes digital conquests because this is what it does.
That's actually a way better topic. Let's talk about digital ships. I got a ship that I want to talk about.
Me and Mila Kunis.
Yeah, relationship. No, not that one. I want to talk about Sea of Thieves. It's a video game I play, and I think it has a lot to say about the evolution of online culture in video games and about the evolution of games in general in how they release nowadays as incomplete and then become complete games over time.
Oh. Well, that sounds good. We need to talk. I kind of want to talk about Mila Kunis, though.
We'll get back there, I'm sure. Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us. I am here once again with my best friend Nathan Pepin. How's it going, Pepin?
Yo, yo, I'm doing well. How about you, Steve?
I'm really good. So glad to be here. And we do have a special guest here with us here today from across the pond, if you will. We're talking to Commando Slippy. How's it going, Slippy?
It's good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So where exactly are you from?
I'm staying here in Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay, so you're Scottish.
Half. It gets confusing.
What's the other half that makes it confusing? Is it like Dwarven or
English?
Oh, okay. So half English, half Scottish. So you hate yourself.
Kind of. I was raised in England, hence the accent. But then I moved back to Scotland as soon as I could.
Okay. So would it be so if I call you English or Scottish, I'm not wrong?
No, I usually refer to myself as British, being born on a Navy base, in Cyprus.
Oh, wow. Your story sounds actually way cooler than anything we're going to be talking about.
So where do you get the term, or where do you get the moniker Commando?
I used to be back in a clan in the old days when it was COD 4, Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
And I used to play a lot. And I used to play as a sniper for them. And I ended up becoming the commando rank, and it just stuck.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you were literally a commander in an online video game.
Yeah, and then the Slippy, I just went with over the years from World of Warcraft days. I used to play a rogue, which slipped in and out of the shadows, and I was a big Star Fox fan growing up, so Slippy was the character I picked, and it just blended together.
Nice. Fox, get this guy off me. I have a Star Fox poster behind me every time when I'm playing video games.
Nice. I have to look out for that.
You should. So, you were the first person I ever played a game called Sea of Thieves with, and you and I game a lot now. We play a lot of different games, but we do still play some Sea of Thieves, and I think Sea of Thieves is a very, very good representation of 2019 video games. The late 2010 era of video games, I think, is well exemplified in Sea of Thieves for a lot of reasons. And I'm really interested in you guys' opinions on a lot of these things. Nathan, you have not played Sea of Thieves, correct?
I haven't. I've heard of it. I saw one video of it, which was interesting, and then people said that's the only interesting video that you'll ever see from Sea of Thieves.
Okay. So you watched that one guy Summit.
Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about?
No, I just know Summit, and that's the only thing people know about Sea of Thieves.
Okay, yeah, so I saw that, and I was like, oh, that looks alright, and then people said it's boring.
It's not boring at all. It's a lot of fun, but I think you need to be with the right crew. By yourself, I think it would be boring. What about you, Slippy?
Personally, I actually agree. It's more fun when you have got more of a team. As for boring, I can see where it came from at first. Like, when the game first came out as an alpha player, the game was basically empty. And then when they released the game, there wasn't really much content, but it was with your crew that made the stories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that so you've been playing this game since alpha, since before release.
Yes.
And then when it released, was it released in beta, or did they call it a complete game at that point?
They called it a complete game at that point. So the Pioneer program, as it was called back in the day, was what you used for testing it out, and you got to experience all the game before it was launched, basically. So you went through so many changes, things like your spyglass. You didn't even have that in the beta.
Oh wow! So they really ramped up the game, but when it was released, it was pretty bare bones. You had as far as like PvE stuff, you had the Kraken, which could randomly spawn, and
no.
you had no.
The Kraken wasn't actually released until a couple of updates later from launch.
Interesting. Okay. And I'm realizing now, as I'm starting to talk about, we haven't even explained anything about the game itself.
Ooh, can I explain it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
I want to hear how Nathan explains it, having seen one video by a guy.
So this is how the game works. You're on the sea, and you are making, say, places. Like, you're going from place to place with your booty, with your cargo. And you're just being, a casual shipper here. But here's where it's cool. Because you can play the rogue. And the rogue can steal ships, supplies from other ships. You can be pirates. So it's good guys versus bad guys. Pirates versus non-pirates. Or maybe even pirates versus pirates. And so you got to make sure your shit doesn't get stolen. And also, you have to ensure the most optimal path to safety. Because, if you got, let's say, 10,000 things of gold, you got to make sure to get there. Otherwise, you're not going to get your $24,000 of gold. So that's Sea of Thieves.
That's pretty much Sea of Thieves.
Is it really?
No, not really.
What?
I mean, in a way. You don't really pick like a class, but like you can choose to do PvP and like to steal stuff from other people. Or you can choose to be a merchant. You could choose to fight skeletons. You can choose to dig up buried treasure, using treasure maps, using riddles.
Is it like an open world game?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's open, but you go to different ports and you can get missions from people. And there are 3 different main things you can do. Merchants, where you go around and you collect chickens and snakes and pigs, and then you sell them. Or you can do treasure maps, which are either a map, you get a picture of an island with an X on it, and you have to go find that and find the X and dig. Or riddles, where it's like a rhyming riddle, and it gives you like, go up top of the mountain and you'll see a bird, then raise your lantern, and you have to raise your lantern at the bird statue. And then finally there's Order of Souls, which is skeletons, and you fight skeletons and you take their skulls back to the Order of Souls lady, and she does something with them and gives you money.
Okay. What's the main goal? Just to make money? Or to get treasure?
Well, the main goal is the mission, the journey now, isn't it?
I guess. Slippy, do you agree with this? Is the main goal of Sea of Thieves the journey?
I would say yes and no. I mean, obviously you're trying to make as much gold as you can to buy all this stuff you want. Going back to the way you described it, you're pretty much close as well, Mida. You're missing out some of the new content that's been released as well. So there's you've got like the fishing, the hunter's call. So you got like fishing achievements and hunting animals and stuff. So that can give you rep towards like special unique weapons. And there's the arena battles now, which is pure PvP, which is also a new reputation that you can earn up in it.
Yeah, so they actually just released an update which dropped a whole bunch of stuff, and there's a ton of stuff I wasn't touching on because as you go around, there are different like side missions. Think trying to get achievements. There's in-game achievements and there's Xbox achievements or Steam or whatever you're playing it on. But the in-game achievements give you access to other unlockables, and it's all aesthetic. So like the different clothes you can wear and the different weapons and equipment you can have, all based on A, you have enough money, and B, you've done the appropriate things to unlock those things.
So this game, the way you're kind of making it out to be, it wasn't that great when it was first released, is that right?
It was very shallow.
Very like, do people complain that they didn't get their money's worth with it?
I think it was pretty clear like what it was when it launched. And Slippy, you may have a better outlook on this, but I know when I started it, they had just released the Megalodon. That was the first time I'd ever played. I actually played with Slippy, learned how to play, and I thought there was plenty to do because like every time you do one of these missions, say you do a gold mission and you're turning in chests, you're gaining reputation in gold hoarders. So it goes up to level 50. And then you have level 50 in Merchant, and then you have level 50 in Order of Souls. So you have 3 different tiers that are veins that you can level up all on their own. So there was a lot for just starting out the game. In from my perspective, where are you at on that, Slippy?
Well, yeah, there was a lot to do because obviously you still had to get that grind up to become Pirate Legend. Now, that was quite a tough grind. Admittedly, I did quite a good chunk of it with players, but I did a good chunk of it on my own as well. And as you know, when you were sailing with me, we did a lot of like farming at one point, and we were earning a lot of gold off it as well. But when the game first came out, that was all there was to do it. It was just literally try and grind as much or be one of those players that basically is a proper pirate, so to speak.
And was that grinding fun, or was it just kind of like monotonous, not well thought out?
It could become monotonous a lot of the time, and sometimes it was a bit like knuckle dragging, so to speak. But when you had a good crew with you and you had friends with you, the experience was a whole different level. So like you were rushing through things to get the missions done, but then at the same time you were having laughs with each other. So the whole experience, yeah, I agree. At first it was very dismal, but now there's so much in the game that keeps you on your toes. So at first it was a case of you just sailing from island to island, and if you had a good crew, someone was always sitting there doing nothing, just sitting playing music or drinking or just messing about. But now with all these new features such as fishing, cooking, it all brings the crew to actually having someone do something at a time. And then obviously you've got people steering, keeping an eye on the sails, depending on the size of the ship.
I don't play video games too much, but this seems to be more and more of a recurring theme of games getting released where not everything is quite finished, or there's continual updates to it, like Elder Scrolls Online. Like that game, when it was released, people wanted to burn it like in a dumpster, and they made patches to it, made more and more improvements, and now it seemed to be like a pretty good game. There's Ark Survival, which I think still might be in beta. I think it's a joke, but they've added a lot to that game, and people actually enjoy the game now.
PUBG was like that too. It was in beta for like literally years, while other games were being released around it. They still considered it in beta, and I think they finally released it like as a full game. But yeah, I mean, it seems like nowadays that is the standard, is to release an unfinished game and then finish it using the money that people paid to get the unreleased game.
And is that tactic shady? I mean, it seems kind of shady to me, but then again, if you're very open about that's the process, okay, then that's what you signed up for. But I think if you are misrepresenting the game to be this or that, and it's not that thing, then you gotta make it very clear that this is what we want the game to become. Like, what was the other game?
No Man's Sky?
Yeah, that one
died because they didn't do it right. Like, if they had released, we're going to start releasing it, this is a closed beta or an alpha, and then grown from there and improved it, would have been one thing. But they released it like, this is the game we were trying to make, and it wasn't.
They made tons and tons of improvements after the fact, so people are saying this game's actually really great now. And a lot of people are saying, you may have tried it back then, but try it again now, and you'll actually like it. But still, it seems like a really shady dev tactic, and I'm not sure if I approve of it. What do you think, Slippy?
I actually agree, and it's funny you mentioned No Man's Skies, because people did refer to Sea of Thieves at the beginning as No Man's Seas.
I can see that if it didn't have anything. But I think it's important to get a whole bunch of people on a similar server with trying out the physics, trying out the gameplay and seeing what works and what doesn't and letting it grow from there. I don't think that it's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually a great thing. Everybody is now the playtesters.
Agreed.
So the game started out with like nothing, but they've added so much that even if like I bought the game back then, actually I don't know if I've ever bought the game. I think I just used Game Pass. But I started playing the game back then. Like if I bought the game, what was it, $40?
Something like that.
I think it was reduced. Like most AAA games are like $60, 70, even 80 sometimes. But like this game was significantly cheaper, somewhere between 20 and 40. I don't remember US. But it started out with like you're just sailing, right? But then so now you're sailing around and let's say you just dug up some buried treasure and you're taking it back and you're going to cash it in. But oh my God, all of a sudden the water around you just turned black and tentacles come up out of the water. And now you're fighting the Kraken as it's latching onto your boat and you're swinging at it with your sword. You're shooting cannonballs at it. You're trying to fight off the Kraken and protect your treasure. And you fought off the Kraken and it goes back down and you've defeated it. You get out of its dark, inky circle and you're sailing. You're almost back to the outpost. All of a sudden, a giant megalodon shark is now chasing your boat and you hear the music start in and it's so intense. And it like they just keep adding more and more things that make the experience. It's not just sailing around anymore. There are hazards in the environment that can trip you up. They could sink your boat, or it could just make it a really, really interesting experience of not just sailing one place to another. On top of that, you have the PvP element where there could be another ship that comes over and starts attacking you. And now you're in an open water fight with a ship and someone jumps off their ship and tries to board your ship and kill you. It's super intense when you're not just sailing around. I think that there's so much more that's been added to the game now.
Yeah.
I remember. I know. I want to talk about Devil's Roar, which is an area that was added. It was what is it, like 10 islands?
Something like that, 8 to 10 islands.
And it's a whole section of the map where when you go into that section, the cloud overhead, it's almost always dark there. And it's because there are active volcanoes in this area. So you have volcanoes spitting lava out the top and rocks, and then like the volcano will die down and you can go on the island, but the water around the island is boiling for a while, and it can sink your ship, or you could get hit by a boulder, a flying boulder. There's lava on the island, and you're running around trying to dig up treasure, which is worth more because it's in a dangerous area. But this adds another element to it, that if you're in the Devil's Roar, you have to contend with not only I think the Kraken can spawn there. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that.
It can.
The Kraken, you have megalodon sharks that could pop up, and now you have skeletons on the islands that can pop up at any time, and now you have raining fire boulders from the sky on top of that. So they just keep adding more and more things that are super, super cool to play in.
So as far as this method of development, it seems like something you're on board with, Steve.
Absolutely. I think that as long as I don't have to pay for the DLC, as long as I paid once and now forever, it's worth it. I get all the updates. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Slippy, what's your opinion?
Well, that was actually one of the things Sea of Thieves mentioned when they released the game. Every bit of content in this game is free. So from start to finish, everything in this game has been free. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Microtransactions.
Play to win or pay to win.
And that's another thing. Like, everyone's level is the same. It's all cosmetics in this game. So you could start playing, and if you were new to the game, for instance, and you could be on par with us lot. I mean, there's that fair advantage. All weapons do the same amount of damage. All aesthetics are just something you're going, and everything you cash in while you're working as a team, it gets added into a pot. So say you're leveling up your gold hoarders, we cash in a chest. That reputation and gold goes the same between every person, so it's not just linked to one person.
Mm-hmm. I like it when companies do that. That's becoming more and more of a thing. There's some good companies out there, such as CD Projekt Red, so they gave their DLCs. Well, you had to buy the DLC, but they put full featured DLCs in there. There's another company.
And that's The Witcher, right?
Yeah, The Witcher. And then there's also Larian Studios that does Divinity Original Sin 2, and the first one as well, Divinity Original Sin. And they release free updates to the games, which it's not DLC, but it's like they improved a whole lot to kind of get it to the console route, and they didn't charge people extra for those things. They just kind of gave it to them, people who had already bought the game. Whereas a lot of studios would, have people buy a remastered version, and it would be kind of stupid. So it's really nice when companies can kind of do that, because the whole DLC and premium and play to win stuff, that kind of gets on my nerves. And also how certain online games can get kind of, I don't know how I'd put it, because I like online games myself. I used to play Counter-Strike Source online a lot. Me and Meter used to play, and the game was lovely, a lot of fun. But then I tried to get into it recently again with both Source and also Go, which is Go is the new one. And my problem is that every server I go onto, there's like a 2-minute ad, like just a 2-minute ad that will start playing, and then these ads won't stop playing. There's just advertisements all over the place. And I kind of get that they're having to pay for server time and blah blah blah, but it's like it wasn't like that before. I could just like play a game and hang out with people. Now it's just ads galore.
Yeah, I mean, advertising in video game is wild. I wouldn't play the game like if there were ads every 2 minutes. That'd be infuriating.
And this has kind of got me being more towards the single player level, because in single player you don't really get ads thrown at you. I mean, maybe there's product placements somewhere here and there, but most likely not if it's a medieval kind of game.
So I think it would be, I wouldn't have an issue with, let's say the game, they're releasing it as a beta, they're admitting it's a beta, they're saying once you buy the game you never pay again. The beta, $20. You can get in on the beta, and you can play the game, and then you'll have it forever. And then when they actually release the game, they release it as a full title, $40, $60. Let's say $40. They release on release date, and it's a complete game, but they have more things they want to continue to add. And then as the game gets more things added to it, they would increase the price for new people who are trying to buy the game, so that it gives you an incentive to buy the game early, but it doesn't exclude you from buying it at any point. Like, what's the point of buying the game in the early days for the same price as when you're going to buy it in a year and a half when it's fully fleshed out?
Yeah, true.
Kind of like PUBG did then, because PUBG did something similar where you paid something like 30 quid UK and money, and you got basically the full game of what it was at the time, because it was still in like beta. But then when they released the game, they did release it at a lower price, but it was still a bit more than what we were paying for it, and all the content again was free. So that was quite a good version of a game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different models now too, because Fortnite's the most played game in the world, or at least it was for such a long time, and that was free, 100% free.
I didn't know that. I thought you had to pay it.
No, you could download the game and play it for free. You never had to pay. Now they had in-game transactions, I believe, and the streaming, which is a whole nother topic that I want to get into at some point, but I won't get into too much here. But streaming became a huge part of how they made money and continued to grow.
Yeah.
Does the online aspect to this game like make it? Does it kind of like? Are there standards less for it being completed compared to like a single player game? So I'm thinking, let's say you played the latest Assassin's Creed, which is purely single player. If that game had a lot missing from it in the same way that Sea of Thieves did, would you be less critical or just as critical? More critical?
I mean, I don't necessarily see an issue with any game if it's releasing for a reduced price because it's not a complete game, as long as afterwards, if you're willing to pay a price for an incomplete game and they're going to use that money to make the game better, you invested, your receipt, your return on investment is free DLC forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the production company is willing to pony up the money in the first place to make a complete game, then you should pay full price for it. But if they only want to pony up half and then they expect their users to pony up half, then they need to have a return on that investment. I think there's so many different models nowadays. There's a series that I play a lot and is sports games, and EA holds most of the licenses, or at least holds a license for most of those games. So I play in an in an NFL league for Madden, and Slippy does as well. Through TPC, 3-player co-op. We've had Brian Langell on the show before. So if you want to check that out, tpcfootball.com or mixer.com/TPC Sports. But with that said, every year they release a new game. And, that's great as long as they're continuing to improve the game. But every year you have to rebuy the game with new players, new graphics, sometimes new gameplay, things like that. As long as it's improving, that's great. But if it's not, then they're killing the old servers and forcing you to buy a new game that may not be as good. My best example for that is NHL. So I play a lot of hockey on the PlayStation. And when I do, they have an online mode where you can there's 6 people per team in a hockey game, and you can each play one person. So you have 6 people versus 6 people. And it started out as online team play great. You would get a 12-person lobby. You would invite all your friends. You would pick teams, and then you would face each other, and that was great. And over time, they slowly broken the game by forcing you into specific lobbies, and they made playing 6v6 really difficult. You had to play against random people, and the biggest note in 19 is broken lobbies. So you get into a lobby, you get all your friends together, you get into a lobby, you click play game, you search for another team. It takes 3 to 4 minutes. Finally, you dropped into a game. You wait in that lobby for it to actually load into the game. Everybody clicks ready up, and then somebody gets booted from the game. And now you have to re-get into a lobby. It's like a 10-minute process just to try and get into a game, and half the time it boots somebody out of the lobby. This game has been released for almost a year now. They haven't fixed the issue. They just don't give a shit.
And so that kind of sounds like one of those things where they shouldn't have tried fixing it from the first place. They should have just brought over the old system from the previous game.
Mm-hmm. So I don't care how they fix it, but the bottom line is, like, you owe the people who paid money for this game that you fix this game. Now, what I would love to see from sports games isn't every year I'm shelling out $60 for the game. Instead, they should move to subscription service. So you have the game, you pay $5 a month, which would end up being $60 a year, and then they have a steady inflow of cash, and then I can cancel it. If they fuck the game up, I can cancel it, and I didn't just shell out $60, and next year I got to shell out another $60, and the game may be more broken than it was the year before.
Mm-hmm. Well, they kind of do that with the EA Access now. All EA games, basically like FIFA, Madden, NHL, all those sort of games, they're released into that EA Access for free, aren't they? So in a way, that feature is there, because if you don't want it, then you can cancel your subscription, but you've still got other games available to you.
That's true. EA Access is available. It's like $30 US a year, and you get access to all the EA games that they put in the vault. But they don't put sports games into the vault until they've been alive for 9 to 12 months. Like, it's an old game by that point. People have already switched to the newer version of the game. So, and it's only available on Xbox. You can't use, and maybe computer, but on PlayStation, EA Access isn't available.
Well, it's like Madden as well. Madden's now, if you notice on the game, it's advertising the new Madden, Madden 20, I think it is.
Yeah, and it's not even been released yet.
And I think we're getting on to another subject here. So next week, let's do part 2, and we'll just finish up this talk about DLC and pay to win and all that kind of stuff. So next week, part 2 of this episode, pay to win. Should you not? No, of course not. We need to talk.
Hi, my name is Derek from The Blaze Experience. The Blaze Experience is about gaming. I talk about video games, and the podcasts that I get into dive really deep into the games. So any games that I talk about, you're going to find a lot about the stats and different aspects of those games. For example, if I talk about guns in a game, it might be talking about the stats of those guns, why one gun is good, why one gun isn't good. And I get into a lot of different aspects of that other video game podcasts don't do. So if you want to find out more about me, you can find me on podcastnh.com. You can find me on Twitter at The Blaze Experience, BLAISE, capital XPERIENCE. And you can also find me on Apple Podcasts and many other directories.